With the release of Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, I figured it would be the perfect time to stop and rank all 11 Wizarding World movies that includes Harry Potter and the spin-off Fantastic Beasts series. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ben, and on this channel I love to talk about movies and TV. And if you also love to talk about movies and TV, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. One more thing before we get started, make sure to let me know down below in the comments your ranking of the entire Wizarding World franchise. You could do just Harry Potter movies, or you could just do Fantastic Beasts movie, or you combine them both. Whatever you want to do, let me know down below. And just a heads up, we will be talking spoilers for all these movies. And without further ado, let's jump into the Wizarding World. Coming in easily in last place is the pretty horrible Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. Now, I mean, talk about a snooze fest. This movie is a total bore from really start to finish. I think my one minor positive with the movie is the opening action sequences maybe opens the door for the movie to be solid, but it's not even close to that. This movie is incredibly hard to get through. For some reason, they decided to throw in all these plot lines and totally just mix it all together, and the outcome is this incredibly overstuffed and messy movie. I was fighting myself trying to get through it without falling asleep. And for a movie that really tries to market Dumbledore as its main character, he is barely in the movie. When it comes down to it, it's a slow, uninteresting, and messy Fantastic Beasts movie, and that's really not what you're looking for. And unfortunately, just coming in right above The Crimes of Grindelwald is the newly released Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Now, if you want to hear my full thoughts on this movie, I'm going to leave a video linked right up above. You can check out my full review. But as for my quick thoughts on this movie, I just did not enjoy it from start to finish. The movie starts off very bland and continues to be bland throughout the entire 2 hours and 30-minute runtime. Does this movie warrant a 2.5-hour long runtime? No, could have been trimmed down 45 minutes. I would have loved an 1.5-hour runtime, but we weren't going to get that. My two minor positives with this movie are Jude Law as Dumbledore. He is pretty great. And then you have the action sequences, which aren't too bad. They're fun to look at, but I was genuinely falling asleep during this movie. It is utterly lifeless, has no character. And speaking of characters, the characters in this movie are just bad. They have no depth to them, and you can't latch on to them, or at least I couldn't. I was consistently waiting for it to end, and when you have a movie that you just want to leave throughout the entire movie, that's a bad sign. I just did not enjoy this one. Coming in at number 9 is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now, as for a spin-off of the Harry Potter movies, it's fine. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's not one that I particularly dislike watching, but again, it's not one that I want to go rewatch. You can feel tiny little hints of the real magic of the prior movies of the Harry Potter movies, but they're oh so tiny. I enjoyed how we got to see the American side of this movie. The entire Harry Potter movies were set in the UK. So in this movie, you get to see all American characters, and really the only British person in this movie is Newt Scamander. It was a welcome change for me. I enjoyed it. There is some astounding set design. It's a time capsule. You just go back to the early 1900s, and when a movie can do that, I love it how it can just transport you. That's what you look for in movies, a transportation device. I mean, talk about a low-stakes movie. Newt Scamander is just basically playing Pokemon. This is basically a Pokemon movie set in the Harry Potter universe. But like I mentioned with Secrets of Dumbledore, these characters have zero charm. Not even go to the actors for that matter. It just doesn't seem like they wanted to be there. And this is especially when comparing to the superb work of everyone in the entire prior Harry Potter movies. They did such a wonderful job, and you look at these guys and it's like, do they even really enjoy this? The visual effects are pretty great, but they're honestly kind of used too much though, like how they actually got rid of actual actors to play the elves, and now they're just doing voiceovers. In the Harry Potter movies, you had people getting physically dressed up to play an elf, and here it's just a CGI creature, and you can tell. But really why I just don't love this movie is it just couldn't keep me engaged. The final act, I guess, is pretty cool, and as for character depth, Ezra Miller is the only one that kind of gets it. Everyone else is fairly thin, but with his traumatic past and his abusive adoptive mom. So I'll give it that, at least they tried. But again, that's really about it for character depth. And this movie does not know when to end. Again, is it gonna end now? No. Is it gonna end now? No. I hate it when movies do that. It's a big pet peeve of mine. So overall, it's a fine adventure, but it fails to stand out and really does not hold a candle to the Harry Potter movies. Coming in 8th place, my least favorite Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I actually feel like this could be a pretty big hot take. And I know a lot of people enjoyed this movie, but for me, I just found it that there was not really much going on in the movie. Does it really matter? Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, later in the movie it obviously matters with a couple deaths, but the movie starts off slow and I was again seriously falling asleep. The movie has an odd color palette, and you'll notice that with the later Harry Potter movies, they kind of have this like brownish look, and this one has this gray look. It's just odd. That's just a nitpick, but overall this movie is incredibly underwhelming. There's lots of love going around in this movie between the characters. A lot of characters are showing affection for one another, and here's where I actually started to enjoy that aspect. I hadn't loved it in prior movies, specifically the Goblet of Fire, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Yates' direction in some of the scenes, but I feel like where this movie had me disappointed was with the death of Dumbledore. That just did not hit, for me, as hard as I wish it would have. And it really should have hit hard because this is a big character in every single one of the other characters' lives. He is basically the father for all these children, honestly, and especially Harry Potter, but he is not in the movie enough as he really should have been. And if we got more of him in the movie, I feel like the death would have hit harder. Trust me, I wanted it to hit hard. This is a big loss, and a big loss of a character in all of these movies. It just didn't work for me. If anything, the death of Sirius Black hit harder for me. And it was just a little better executed, I feel. But just the slow and underwhelming nature of this movie can't save it. It's got nice cinematography. It's still a Harry Potter movie, so there is some enjoyment to find comparing it especially to the Fantastic Beasts movies. But overall, it just felt uneventful to me. Just above Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This one's tricky for me because I really wanted to love it. After the wonderful Sorcerer's Stone, which we will talk about higher up on this list, I wanted to love this movie, but I just couldn't. It is definitely a step down from the first. A big red flag for the movie at the beginning specifically was the character introductions. I mean, Dobby at first is very much so an annoying character. Towards the end, you can like him a little bit more. And towards the end, he isn't too bad, which is good because this is a pretty substantial character. But Gilderoy Lockhart, man, what an annoying character. The movie starts off exploring more of Hogwarts, and for a while, it even felt like an almost spin-off movie with the same characters. But then you finally see that it does actually connect to Voldemort in that overall story. But everything with the Chamber of Secrets, I just didn't find all that interesting. So once again, an overly long movie. It does not warrant an almost 2 hour and 45 minute runtime. I was pretty disappointed by the time the credits rolled, and to put it simply, this movie just didn't work for me. And then you have Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Now, when it comes to this movie, it's very much so a setup for what's going to happen in the next movie. Similarly to the Half-Blood Prince, it starts off very slow, but at least it's building to something big. As dark of a movie as it is, it still manages to crack some jokes, and there's 2 big deaths in this movie. The death of Dobby, which is terrific, so emotional. Once you see the knife just going through it, it's like, oh no, and then you find out it hits Dobby. It's very sad. But the death of Mad-Eye Moody is completely glossed over. They're like, oh, he died, oh no, on to the next. Like, what? That's what it just felt like to me. At the beginning of the movie, he dies, and it just doesn't have much of an effect on these characters, but he was a pretty big part of the prior movies. But this movie definitely has pacing issues, and it has a big tendency to meander. In my opinion, I wouldn't say that this movie warranted 2 parts. Maybe it could have been this long, epic 3 hour. I would have loved maybe a little longer than that, but just a big epic is what I would have preferred rather than 2 movies, but we got what we got. I think when you're looking at the bigger picture, it does give a good chance to expand on a lot of things that might have been glossed over, so I'll give it that. But it kind of just feels like they were stalling throughout a lot of the movie. There's a lot of exposition heavy moments, but I will say the one part that was animated, I thought that was a cool way to incorporate animation into a movie that is obviously just live action. And instead of just someone talking to one of our big characters, it's a little animation scene. I thought it was pretty nice. It was an interesting way to do it, and the movie has a damn good ending. Voldemort just ending it off, that ended with a big bang. As for everything else, wasn't the biggest fan of it. At number 5, we have Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Now, for me talking about a lot of slow-paced movie, this one is a very fast-paced movie. In the beginning, at least, a lot is established within just 30 minutes. That's definitely something we aren't necessarily used to in Harry Potter movies. Visual effects are surprisingly good for 2005, and there's some nice jokes throughout. Plus, the additions of Cedric and Mad-Eye Moody, those were 2 big standouts for me. But I think for my negatives, I could do without the teen drama. I get it, they're teenagers and it helps their character, but it overshadows a lot of the movie. I would have preferred if they executed it in a better way. So like the first 2 acts of this movie wasn't the biggest fan of, but then you get to the 3rd act. I love the third act. The final test was very well executed and consistently suspenseful. And then when you get to Voldemort's entrance, talk about a chill-inducing moment. I was genuinely scared, and I was not even in the movie, I was just watching it. Obviously I wasn't in the movie, what am I saying? And the third act alone makes this movie oh so good. As for everything else in this movie, it's just fine, but the big memorable part is that third act. And if a movie has a pretty big third act, and it's a very memorable, I'll give it that, so that's why it's higher up on the list. In fourth place is the conclusion to this entire set of movies, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Talk about one hell of a conclusion. You have the vault scene, which was a great way to start the movie. It just hooks you. The score is just mwah, and the visuals continue to impress me. There are some total crowd-pleasing moments here, which I was not complaining about. I think a minor issue is this movie does have pacing issues. I feel like that's a big common thread between all these Harry Potter movies. That's just me being nitpicky, but a big, really strong standout here. Alan Rickman, the late, great Alan Rickman. What a treasure he was. He is truly terrific here. I mean, in all the movies he is, but what a presence he has. He has the effect that someone like Voldemort has. It's very impressive, and you just can't, you're locked with your eyes on them, you can't look away, and they scare you. And a little bit of backstory that we've gotten all throughout the movies, but really here with Snape was just really special. It was incredibly well done, so tragic. You learn about his history with Harry Potter's parents and how he wasn't treated all that well. How he loved Harry Potter's mother. But learning all of that makes his death hit harder. I think it was a very important part in just the entire franchise. But the final battle is absolutely epic. Whether it's Neville coming in clutch, or obviously the big iconic moment between Harry and Voldemort, the final show off. This is just how you end a big franchise. And the ending, like, how can you not just get a little tear in your eye? You can really even be bawling. It's just magical, 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 magical. In third place, the one that started it all, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or depending on where you live, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Now when you have a movie that just gives you such magical vibes and it's such a warm and welcoming invitation to Hogwarts, I love that. Something I really haven't talked about much in this video, but it is such a big part of this entire franchise, are the three main characters. Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley. And just really quickly, talk about perfect casting. Can you see anyone else playing all three of these characters? Each and every single one of them throughout all 8 movies are consistently terrific and giving better and better and better performances as they go on. Seeing them grow throughout all the movies is honestly kind of emotional when you think about it. The trio of Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint is iconic, and they will go down in history, movie history, I will guarantee that. But I mean, this movie just such a wonderful job at transporting you. You feel like you are a part of Hogwarts. A big problem that a lot of people give this movie is that it's just a lot of getting to know everything and not much happens. And the plot doesn't even really kick in. The Sorcerer's Stone, that's like an hour and a half into the movie. But I didn't really mind that all that much because I was just interested in learning more about this world. This movie honestly does it with such ease. I was not complaining learning about how to play Quidditch and learning about how to use your wand and learning about what a wand is, all that stuff. It just makes me giddy talking about it. It almost feels like a Christmas movie in a way because it's just so warm. Yes, there is a scene that is literally set at Christmas, but it just has just this wintry vibe to it. It's just a wonderful watch in the holiday season. And talk about an iconic theme. What a phenomenal piece of music. Just the entire score in general throughout every single one of these movies is just magnificent. But it's not a perfect movie. The visual effects are definitely dated, but it was 2001, what do you expect? It doesn't have perfect pacing, I will say some moments do slow down. You could have cut off a bit of the movie as well. It's just a fairly low stakes movie, which by the way has some awesome set design. All of these movies, the set design is just magnificent. That's a big part of transporting you to this world. They did a wonderful job. And sometimes you just need a low stakes movie. It just introduces you to this world, again, with ease. It's almost a warm welcome to feeling like you're at home again. I just love this franchise and this movie in particular. But in second place, a lot of people's favorite, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This was an interesting new turn for the franchise because you didn't have Chris Columbus in the director's chair this time around, it's Alfonso Cuarón. And from the start you can tell there's a new director behind the camera. but I enjoyed it. It's not too drastic of a change, but the movie definitely has a different look and style almost. But Alfonso Cuarón is a very talented director, so I was not complaining at all. It's also visually a darker movie, like it looks darker and it has some darker themes as well. Some of the new characters are excellent additions. You got Lupin in Sirius Black, who's just a great character. Others, not so much. You got Trelawney, who I just wasn't a big fan of. I mean, she is just an ever so small part of the movie, but that's just a nitpick. But again, just going back to the late Alan Rickman, it's just a presence. That's the exact word to describe him. He brings this haunting and mysterious just presence to this movie. But I think where this movie really started to take a turn for me was the second and into the third act. It is filled with twists and turns and it feels fresh. It's actually quite the clever second or third act, and that's where things started to really turn around for me. I started to love the movie. I would say that if the first act was just a little bit tighter and a little bit more investing for me, this would have been probably my favorite and a perfect movie. And it's just ever so slightly above the Sorcerer's Stone for me. It's very neck and neck. But in first place, a movie that just filled me with such joy, and I found myself enjoying it all throughout, which really for a lot of these movies I have. But coming in first place, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I think my biggest praise for this movie is the final battle. Arguably the best final battle in this entire franchise. A lot of that goes to David Yates' direction, who is wonderful. I love his new direction in the movie. It definitely has a much darker tone with this one. The first of the franchise that really starts off with a darker tone. Some of the other movies slowly turn into a darker movie, but this one just starts off dark. I adore the scenes with Harry teaching everyone else. He really comes into his own and he becomes the teacher, which is a great aspect for our leading character. A lot of leading characters are teachers and he really comes into that. This last time I'm gonna say it, but again, I really enjoyed Snape and just learning a little bit more about his backstory. But when you think of villains, how do you not think of Umbridge? She is despicable. You hate her. But if you have a character that you hate so much and they are playing the villain, they're doing something right. That really just goes to show you how great Imelda Staunton is. She is a horrible character and a horrible human being. But in that sense, she's a good character because you hate her and she's the villain. That's kind of her job. So all in all, I really enjoyed this one, but I can't preface this enough. I love this entire franchise, but if I had to pick one as my favorite, it would be Order of the Phoenix. But guys, that is my ranking of the entire Wizarding World franchise. I can't tell you enough how much I love these movies. You know, some of them are pretty bad, but then you have the highs of the highs, and it is just, they're becoming one of my favorites of all time. This series is becoming a favorite of mine. I just love it. But be sure to let me know down below one more time your ranking of the Harry Potter movies if you have not already. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you did enjoy it, consider giving it a like as well as subscribing and hitting that notification bell to get notified whenever new videos like this go live. I had a blast talking about the Wizarding World with you, and I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, look forward to more videos coming soon. My name is Ben, people call me Meter, and I'll see you guys in the next one.